I remember the exact moment when I realized that one of my children had no idea how to study. Just a moment later, I realized that I too had no idea how to study either. I just somehow made it through. He was staring at a textbook with a highlighter in his hand, and he said, "I've read it 3 times. I think I've got it." And I knew in that moment that we had a problem. Not because he wasn't trying, but because no one had taught him how to actually learn. And seeing as this child was a homeschooled child, that someone who never taught him how to learn was me. If your homeschooled child is bright but forgets everything that he or she has learned at test time, if they say that they have studied, but you know it wasn't really actually studying, or if you're constantly having to reteach what you taught in the first place, then this video is going to give you the tools that you need to change all of that. In homeschool, we have a golden opportunity as parents to teach our children how to actually learn. And I don't know about you, but I didn't actually learn how to learn in school. We don't want our kids to just figure out how to pass a quiz. And here's the truth: you don't have to be naturally organized or academically gifted. All of these skills are trainable. I'm going to walk you through exactly how to teach your kids to study effectively by age group with real doable methods. And this will change how they approach learning completely. And if you're watching this right now thinking, Ashley, learning how to study is the very least of my worries. My homeschool needs an entire reset. Don't worry. I have something for you in the description box. It's free. It's called the Homeschool Rescue Plan, and you can get it below. Let's start with this. Most kids never really actually learn how to study. I know that I didn't in school. They confuse reviewing with actual learning. They review a chapter, look over the study guide questions, and think that that's enough. Maybe they watch a video again. Maybe they highlight a few things. And then they're like, yep, I've studied. I'm ready for this test. But what they've actually done is just rebuilt familiarity. It's recognition, not retention. So when test day comes, they freeze because they never practiced retrieving that information. They've only practiced recognizing it. Here are the top 3 ways that most homeschooled kids think that they're studying, but they're actually not. Rereading the same page over and over. Rewatching a lecture video. Highlighting everything but retaining nothing. If your kids are doing any of those, don't worry, it's what we're about to fix. The consequences of not addressing this are kids who come to you and say, but I thought I studied for that test. Or, I guess I'm just not smart. Or, what's the point of trying? But here's the opportunity for homeschoolers. You can teach your kids how to study effectively, intentionally, strategically, and even without burnout. And the good thing is that when you teach them how to do this, you give them something better than an A on a test. You give them intrinsic motivation. Here's what I mean. Your child can't control what their IQ is, but they can control what they do with it. When they see that consistent effort leads to real results, and that studying with intention actually works, then they become internally motivated because it's not about external rewards anymore. It's actually about ownership. And that ownership produces grit, confidence, and independence, which is something we all want for our kids, right? We want kids who take responsibility for their own growth because we don't want to have to follow them to college. In the Homeschool Rescue Plan, I teach you how to build this kind of structure and accountability within your own homeschool. So let's go ahead and start with the elementary years. And if you're watching this and your child is already in middle school or high school, I would actually suggest that you start with what I'm teaching in the elementary years because these skills really build on each other. So if you have a high schooler who has no idea how to study, still start here because this is going to help them grasp the more complex concepts that we get to in high school. Okay, so our goal here is not test prep. It's actually training the brain to focus, remember, and then clearly express. Here are the 3 foundational tools. Number 1, narration. Now, I know all of the Charlotte Mason homeschoolers just threw up their fists and shouted, yes, that's right. Well, it is right. It's a very useful tool. After you read a story to your child or your child reads a story to himself, ask him to tell you what the story was about in his own words. Let them draw it or write it out in 1 to 2 sentences. This builds recall and sequencing skills. Number 2, the teach it back rule. After each lesson, say, pretend that I just forgot everything and teach it back to me. You don't have to be the one that your child teaches it back to you. You can always ask your child to teach it to a younger sibling, And by teach it, we're talking like 2 to 3 minute lessons here. We're not talking like a 45-minute whole lecture. They can say it to a child that's younger than them. They can tell it to their father at the dinner table, or they could even teach it to an older child. And by teach, we really just mean like explain the concept in their own words. And number 3, and this is really the most powerful one, teach them how to build a memory palace. A lot of people have never even heard about this unless you've gone down the rabbit hole of advanced study skills. But this is actually an ancient method that works incredibly well for children. And here's how it works. So you pick a room that your child is very familiar with. It could be their room, it could be the living room, it could be the school room, whatever room you want is fine. Then you're going to choose 3 to 5 objects or locations within that room. So let's say it's your child's room. So you would choose their bed, their dresser, their nightstand, the chair in the corner, the closet. And then you're going to help your child assign each place in the room a piece of information that you want them to learn. You're going to create a silly visual image for your child that helps them connect the piece of information that you want them to learn to the spot in the room. For example, George Washington chopped down a cherry tree. So you're going to tell your child, imagine George Washington sitting on your bed, holding a cherry tree like you hold your teddy bear. The crazier and more visual, the better. Now you're going to have your child walk through the memory palace and explain the visual to you. You're going to repeat that journey for a few days. Later, you're going to quiz them. What was on your dresser? And they retrieve the fact. This method builds deep memory with pressure. It turns abstract facts into vivid mental pictures. And it works beautifully for history sequences, science, spelling rules, math facts. Now let's talk about middle school. Middle school is where you're going to shift from input to ownership. The goal now is to teach them how to organize information with their brains, not just absorb it. This is where we get into 2 key tools. We're going to talk about scaffolding and mind mapping. Let's go ahead and start with the scaffolding. Okay, so scaffolding means building a mental framework so that the facts have a place to go. Without it, everything just feels random. With it, they know how to sort, file, and retrieve information. Have you ever had a moment as an adult where someone asks you a question and you know the answer? It's right at the tip of your tongue, but you can't pull it out of your brain. What you're experiencing is a lack of information organization within your own brain. So this is a really important thing to teach your children how to do so that they're putting information into their brain, but then they can go find it, retrieve it, and then tell you whatever it is. So here's how to scaffold. You're going to start with the big idea. So for instance, what is this chapter about? Or what is this paragraph about? What's the big idea here? And you want to get the big idea into just one sentence. Then you're going to break that into big categories like people, events, cause, effect. You can draw boxes or charts to house those 3 different categories or 3 or 4 different categories. And then you're going to ask your student, where does this fact go? Where are we going to categorize it? Under people, events, cause, effect. You can even have like a dates category. Like, don't just stick to those 4. You do this within your own information. You're going to use that scaffold as a weekly review tool, and then you're going to update it as they learn. So now let's talk about mind maps. These are especially great for visual learners. I personally love mind mapping. And here's how to create one. You're going to start again with the big idea in the center. For example, the American Revolution. And then you're going to draw branches for categories. So we would have causes, key figures, battles, results, and you're going to use 1 color per branch. Color coding is pretty powerful. Add short phrases or keywords on sub branches. You can add tiny sketches or icons like a teacup for the Boston Tea Party or a crown for King George. You're going to show connections with arrows. So for example, the Stamp Act connects to colonial protest, connects to Boston Massacre, and you're going to circle the most important items. Review it by telling the story out loud. And of course, the goal here is having your child tell the story out loud, not just you doing it for your child. And then later, you're going to have them recreate it from memory. And you're going to keep updating and expanding it as they learn more. Using wide paper is really good for this. Mind maps combine logic, creativity, and recall. They train the brain to see connections, which is super important, not just memorize lists. And finally, middle schoolers need a way to manage the overwhelm. This is where the ladder method comes in. And it goes like this. So rung number 1 is that you have your child skim the information. So if you want them to learn chapter 11 of their science book, then you're going to have them first skim the information. Look for everything in that chapter that already feels familiar and no pressure. Like you want them to just pick out the parts that they already know about. Rung number 2, this time you're going to have them read it again, but outline or mind map it as they go. Rung number 3, self-quiz. This is where flashcards come in and having them teach it out loud. Each rung deepens understanding, and each rung also builds confidence. You're teaching them not to panic, to start somewhere, and to build up the information over time. And this is how real studying happens. This is how, repetition over time, not cramming, helps them to get the information deeply into their brain so that it doesn't just seep back out. Now, let's talk about high school. By now, your goal is to help your teen own the whole process. And by the way, I just want to say, these methods work for adults too. So if you never learned how to study, like I didn't learn how to study, start with the elementary basics and build along with your student. You should be learning how to do this too. So in high school, study should look like planning, organizing, and self-testing. So let's start with flashcards. Do not, whatever you do, purchase flashcards. Part of the learning process here is the student creating the flashcards for themselves. And why should they make their own? Well, because making is learning. When they make their own flashcards, they are deciding what matters, and then they are summarizing it in their own words. They're engaging multiple parts of their brain, and they're strengthening recall pathways. Buying pre-made flashcards skips all of that. It may feel productive, but it's actually passive. You're not saving time here. The time spent making flashcards is real study time that really helps. So here's how to build an effective study note card. You're going to start with a 4x6 index card. The larger size gives more room for clarity. On the front, you're going to write a question or a cue, not the full answer. On the back, you're going to have your students summarize the answer in their own words. You want to keep it concise but complete. Use bullet points and numbering if needed. Have your student add drawings, symbols, anything that will help trigger the memory. And you're going to want to have your student color code these by subject or theme. You want to have your student also include examples on the flashcard, especially when you have abstract concepts. After your student completes the flashcards, make sure that they're testing themselves daily. You're going to have them sort it into 2 piles. I know it and I don't know it. You're obviously going to have them review that I don't know it pile more often, but they still need to be going over that I know it pile so that the information continues to be reinforced in their brain. Now, let's talk about how to help your student build a powerful study guide. This is important because unlike a pre-written study guide where your student is just filling in, the answers to questions, having them build it from the ground up reinforces everything and it helps them think about things in different ways. So you're going to want to title the guide clearly. For this example, we will say Unit 3, Early U.S. Government. You're going to have them list the learning objectives or topics, and then you're going to have them break those into categories. For example, vocab, key people, major events. Have them hand write with a pencil or a pen everything, no typing. There's tons of research that's been done on the benefits of using longhand over typing. For some reason, there's a hand-brain connection that really helps to solidify this information. So whenever they're doing this, it needs to be written. Use bullet points, no paragraphs. Add visual structure, so headings, lines, colors. Include sketches or charts if they're helpful. Write down memory tricks or mnemonics that might help your child remember certain things, and leave space to add notes later on. You're going to have them use their study guide to quiz themselves or to explain or teach the concept to another child or to you or to dad. So this whole study guide process, it trains executive function, independence, and long-term retention. It is a total win-win-win. And most importantly, it creates that ownership that we're going for. If your child masters all of these study tools, they are going to be so over-prepared for college, it's not even going to be funny. So I get it. All of this takes time. You're probably feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now. But here's what I've learned. Spending this time on the front end, it gives you your time back later. And let's be honest here, it gives your students some time back too, because they're not going to be spending 12 hours studying for a final exam because they've been doing it all along and they've been doing it so much more productively. No more reteaching, no more blank stares, no more dragging them through the material. You are building kids who know how to learn, who know how to take responsibility. And it also strengthens your relationship. You're not the nag, you're the coach. And I've seen these results over and over. These are not just hacks, they are habits that build really strong, smart future adults who know how to use their brain to its best ability. And this is the kind of thing that I help you inside the Homeschool Rescue Plan: structure, ownership, mastery. So let me just summarize one more time each study method by age. In the elementary stage, narration, memory palaces, and teach it back. In middle school, scaffolding, mind maps, and the ladder method. In high school, DIY study guides, self-quizzing with flashcards, and with purpose. So that's the path. That's the path from chaos to clarity when it comes to studying. So if you want your homeschool to run like a mission and not like a mess, if you want to raise kids who own their own learning, and if you're tired of wondering if anything is actually sticking, click below and grab the Homeschool Rescue Plan. It will teach you how to reset, rebuild, and reestablish mastery in your home. Because the real win isn't acing the test. It's raising a son or daughter who knows how to think, and a son or daughter who knows exactly how to tackle the unknown. That starts with study skills, but it doesn't end there. It starts with raising leaders.